mean, okay, varchar. All right, 1, gender, char, 1. OK, there we go. Captain. Oh, I'm all over the place. All right. Varchar, let's say 128. Why? Just because. It's the same. You have to make a decision, so you might as well pick something consistent in this case. So there's a bunch of other fields we can choose here. And let me just point them out, but they'll be more germane to problem set 7. So notice we could specify default values. So this is handy, because if you don't want to deal with inserting default values, you can actually have your database do that for you. We can also scroll down over here to attributes. And none of these are actually valid just yet. But notice in pset 7, we actually will take advantage of unsigned integers so that we don't waste bits using negative numbers for IDs. We can also scroll over here and specify indices. And this is a fundamental database concept. When you have users in a database or data in a database, you very often want to search that data. For instance, you might want to search by username or search by ID, search by stock ticker symbol, search by friend ID, or the like. So to do that by default, just as in Excel, if you want to search something, well, you can use linear search, right? Because your database isn't necessarily going to be sorted if you have people registering or signing up for your website in some random order because they're on the internet. But you can tell your database, you know what? I know that I'm going to be doing a lot of searches called selects on this particular field, like name or ID or username. So you know what? You can tell the database, assume that you should index this field. To index a database field means to use data structures from last week and 2 weeks ago in CS50, use some tree-like structure underneath the hood so that in the future, when I ask you a question, has David registered, you can answer like this instead of much more slowly in linear time by searching the whole database table. So we'll see more of those on problem set 7. And null just allows me to specify, you know what? This field can be null. Captain could be null, for instance, if it weren't a Boolean. But for now, we'll just leave that thing unchecked. And if I now go over here all the way to the bottom and left or right and click Save, what I will see is this. And this, again, is what this tool simplifies. So what I've highlighted there just a moment ago is a whole bunch of SQL code, create table, and name, and captain, and gender, and dorm. And all of that I could have typed manually at a blinking prompt. But instead, this tool has created this table for me so that now if I go back to the left, notice that under my JHarvard Week 9 database, I have this table. Notice that under this table, I have a little reminder of what I actually did. Not to fear, the collation here is all somehow related to Swedish. That's just because the people who implemented MySQL originally were Swedish. But thankfully, Swedish characters overlap with English characters. So that simply is the default. And what we have here now is a 4-field database. Let me see who's in this database. Browse. OK, no one's in this database at this point in time because I haven't inserted anyone. So let's do just that. Let me go back to my code here. And let me open up, say, register8.php. So assume that this is the file that that same form we've been playing with today submits to. Notice I have a few sanity checks at the top. If you didn't give me a name, if you didn't give me a gender, if you didn't give me a dorm, go away. Go back to this other URL. Otherwise, connect to the database. So this is a new PHP function. PHP plays very nicely with MySQL. It has a lot of built-in support for it. This line of code here says connect to the local host, that is my server, my appliance, using this username and this password. We have pre-created a JHarvard and Crimson account for your database in the appliance by default. What database do I want to use? Well, I want to select the database called JHarvard Week 9. That's the one I just created. And now I have to do a couple things for security's sake. We'll talk more about this before long. But for now, know that there's this idiotically named MySQL real escape string function. So do as we say, not as other people do. Whose purpose in life, similar to HTML special chars, is to somehow scrub the user's input. What do we mean by that? If they typed in anything crazy like apostrophes or backslashes or worse, keywords like delete or update or insert that we might otherwise risk accidentally passing to our database directly, calling this crazy long function, MySQL real escape string, ensures that even if they type something crazy dangerous like delete, I am not going to treat that as command. I'm going to treat that as a string from the user. So notice I'm declaring a variable called $name. I'm storing in it the return value of this function that's taking as input literally what the user typed. And now notice, recall that captain is either the word on or it's just not even present at all. So in this case, I have to create a variable called captain that's either the number 1 for true or 0 for false. Then I'm going to similarly scrub gender and dorm with that same MySQL real escape function. And now notice how you actually insert into a database. MySQL is running on the same server, on the same local host. So if I want to insert data into it, I essentially need to speak its language. PHP is not its language. HTML is not its language. SQL is its language. So all I have to do in PHP is create a string using double quotes that matches the server's expectations for how to insert data. And it turns out to insert data into a database, you can say insert into the name of the table. Then in parentheses, you specify a comma-separated list of the fields that you want to insert values into. Then, it's on the new line, but this could all be one line. You literally say values, and then another set of open parentheses. And then inside of the second set of parentheses, you put another comma-separated list, this time, of course, with the values. And notice one key important detail here. I'm using single quotes around each of these variables' names because they are strings. They themselves have to be quoted. I can't use double quotes, really, because I already use them. So the simplest approach is to use single quotes there. And now this is one thing we could not do in C. In C, we had to do things like printf and sprintf. With PHP, if you want to insert a variable here in a string, you literally just write that variable's name. It will be interpolated inside of the double quotes. This last line here, MySQL query, $SQL, will actually create this table, will actually execute that query for us, so that if I go to frosh.ims 8.php, and if I type in David and captain and male and Matthews and click register, it says I'm registered, which it's been saying, frankly, all week. But if I now go to my database and click browse, oh my God, it actually worked. I have now registered for frosh.ims. Happy Halloween. We will see you on Wednesday.